Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the International Coaches Roundtable podcast. This week you are with co-hosts Alex and Elia as they interview the special guest relationship coach Jana Cole. When Jana works with her clients, she primarily emphasizes connection through vibration and uses music as a way of understanding the universe around you in a new way. So grab a chair, get comfortable, and we will see you at the table.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the International Coaches Roundtable. I'm one of your co-hosts, Alex Conway, activist, author, and founder of LGBTQ Joy. I'm joined by my other co-host, Elia Mrakovich.
Hey guys, welcome. We're super excited to be here. We have a wonderful guest who's with us. This is relationship coach and teacher Jana Cole. And now, Jana, it's our understanding that you have a pretty interesting story that, and you know what, everybody says, no, my story's not all that interesting. We know your story's pretty interesting. So Jana, could you give us a little bit of insight into the relationship coach kind of world, how you got dragged into that, give us a little bit of that journey that got you here?
Okay. Well, it definitely did grow out of my life journey because I grew up in a family where we weren't allowed to express ourselves at all. We had my siblings, we had old school parents who were very authoritarian, and we couldn't express anything that was contrary to what they thought. No emotions, no thoughts, no words. And it was very stifling. It was like living in an emotional prison. And there was nothing we could do about it. That was just how we had to live until we were old enough to move away. So I had a couple of ways of dealing with that. One of the ways I dealt with it was I'm a piano player. I'm a musician. And so music was my expression to the world. It's how I connected with people in ways that I couldn't connect with my family. And then the other thing was that I was kind of an introvert my whole first 18 years of my life. I was like a little turtle because there was just no point in expressing myself. So I went off to college, and my interpersonal skills were not so good because I didn't have any practice, and I was majoring in music. So I was by myself all the time, studying and practicing and writing. And so that's just how I was for literally decades. And so fast forward 20 years later, I'm divorced with 2 kids, and I was a real estate agent at the time, which is very difficult work. And I really needed something to really work well in my life. And I stumbled on a life coaching certification course right when life coaching was just starting to become mainstream. I was very curious. I took this course, and it was just a new world. It just opened me up in ways I never could have expected. And I started actually having conversations with people for the first time in my life. And I knew I wanted to help other people improve their relationship. So I became a coach. I loved it. It felt like a calling because of what I had already experienced in life. And I really believe that the quality of your life is the quality of the relationships in your life. So now everything's great. I have 2 grown kids. We have great relationship with each other, way better than I ever could have had with my parents. And so one of the ways I serve is to help adults have that connection and that heartfelt communication with the important people in their lives. Their significant others, their people they work with, their friends, their other family members.
Yeah.
And that's what got me. That's how I got to where I am right now.
That's beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that journey with us. It's really powerful to hear how your life has transformed from being almost afraid or almost criticized for having any sort of relationship to finding a love of music to now being able to connect with others. I think that speaks to something that is so deeply human. I think we can all relate at a deeper level around having these kind of 3 core needs that we talk about in different episodes in different ways. But one of them is to feel seen. So to just be seen for your uniqueness, your love, your passion of music, to feel connected and inspired by others, and to have some version to look up to that gives you like a role model. and hearing you talk about how you've had those needs met later on in life, how you started to kind of develop this sense of connection to others, is so powerful.
Mm.
Thank
Well,
you.
you described yourself as a like a little turtle, and one, you almost lost me there. I'll be honest with you. I started imagining a turtle going off to college to learn piano and and all that. So, but I'm intrigued. So, do you feel like in that setting, your natural natural way of connecting with people would have been more of an extroverted way of connecting, but you felt like you were actually forced into this sort of introverted style of living? Is that kind of what you're describing?
Yes, that's exactly how it was. In fact, when I look back at pictures of myself when I was a little girl, I'm a very introverted, happy child. There are pictures of me like grabbing people's legs, like I was a big hugger, and my mom even mentioned it to me when I was in my late teens. She said something to the effect of, "You used to be so outgoing, and then
Mm,
something happened." And at that time, I couldn't have articulated it because I hadn't been trained to express
mhm.
myself. But thinking back on it now, what was going through my head was, well, yeah, I I can't I learned finally that whenever I express myself, I get punished for it. So
Mm.
it's just not worth it, Mom. So,
Yeah.
but I
And
couldn't keep it.
it's hard to punish somebody for music. So that's a beautiful thing that you had that outlet to be able to express yourself and to show up in a way that in some ways could communicate that out. So you were taught piano growing up. Do you compose? Like, do you write? Yeah, that's
I do.
awesome.
I do. Maybe, they say, I remember Barack Obama and many others have said, the universe works in mysterious ways. Maybe that was, how I was supposed to be introduced to music because I practiced 3 and 4 hours a day. And
Wow.
and I have a master's in composition, and I write songs and wordless music, and I write music on the computer. I have an app that generates music. And so, I've written for people's, films and things, short films. So maybe it was a divine gift. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest with you, the next question that's coming to my mind right now, and then I'm going to stop dominating right now. But I got to know, Jana, like for you right now, when you are trying to relax, you're trying to calm down, you're trying to get centered, what's the kind of I want to know what the kind of music an actual composer pursues. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know anything about it. I like whatever, you
Uh-huh.
know, but as a composer for you, like what kind of helps you center in the music world? Like, what gets you back to you?
Well, I think that's a great question because music is so personal and also it's so general because I really believe that music is a way of connecting with um, the universe, the divine, spirit,
Mm,
whatever, because it's so intangible and it's just vibration. And it's a language, it's a way of connecting to the ether. And
Mhm.
it says a lot about a person, what they like to listen to. So me, I would say you ask me what gets me back to me. I'm
mhm.
I'm I'm kind of a generalist. Yesterday, great question. Last night, here's what I listened to just before I went to bed to calm me down so that I could go to sleep. I listened to Paint It Black and Give Me Shelter. That's what I listened to last night. Give me shelter, calm me down so I can go to sleep.
If it works, it
That's
works, right? Like you
amazing.
said, the universe works in mysterious ways.
Hmm.
And I love that how music can be something that is so personal and yet something that can be so connecting. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Well, what comes to mind when you ask me that is I use numbers to write music. I don't know how much more generic or impersonal you can get, but it's a whole other conversation how I discovered this way of using numbers to create nice sounds. And when I posted them online, I get such amazing responses from people. You know, they say things like, I'm all about this, or this is just great stuff, or how did you do this? And it just speaks to how what a universal language music is in connecting with people. It's why I made my website, the Universe is Musical, the universeismusical.com, after my way of connecting when I was young. It really saved me. I don't know what would have happened to me. Actually, I do know what would have happened to me if I hadn't had music. I would have turned out more like other people in my family who I don't want to judge, but
We yeah.
they have a different
Mhm.
way of they had a different way of coping with how they were treated. And I
Mhm.
think they became more like it. They
Mhm.
became more like it. They accepted it more.
Mm.
Whereas because I withdrew from it and then was able to come out later, I didn't become it. I didn't accept it. So
So music and art and all of these wonderful tools that we have can be such a powerful way for us to experience emotions and get connected with our own emotions. Can you talk a little bit about how it can also be used as a tool to build connection with others?
it is it's an instant connection. It's an instant bond. Uh, I mentioned old school rock and roll, but I play a lot of different kinds of music. And one kind of music that I've played a lot of is early music, which is ensemble music from the 1600s and earlier.
Mhm.
And there's a whole underworld of people who play this music. And
That's incredible.
it's the
That is
music of
incredible.
it's the music of the harpsichord and the recorder
Mhm.
and instruments like that.
There's
And
like this secret underground 1600s music group that's
yes,
just like out there working together online.
offline, offline,
Online.
offline. Yes,
That's great.
yeah. And when you meet someone like that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I play the viola da gamba. You play the viola da gamba. Okay, I got the recorder, and they play harpsichord." Instantly, the music comes out, and when you play with them, it's almost like being on a date with them. It's just an
Mm.
instant, connection and communication with each other. Not so different from people who discover that you play the drums and you play the guitar, and
Oh,
this guy
sure.
plays the
Mhm.
bass, and hey, Friday night, I'll bring the pizza. It's the same thing. It's just an instant way of communing with people.
That
And
was
what do
one of
you
my oh, go ahead. Sorry,
I was gonna
Alex.
say, and I was gonna say, what do you say to people who say, "I'm not really musically inclined. I don't know how to play an instrument. I don't know how to sing," but yet get what's deeper at that, how music can be a tool to really connect with others. And so, how do you speak to those people who say, "Yes, I like listening to music, or I like the idea of music, but I don't see myself as an artist. And so, how can I use music in my own life to really see these results?"
I've never met anyone who didn't like some kind of music, you know.
Man,
I,
I mean, that's like the right answer though, isn't it?
Right?
You know, like, yeah, who have you met that's not into some kind of music? I feel like it's always nerve-wracking when you're asked to like produce or even show off the music you like. That's something that stresses me out when I'm with people and they say, well, why don't you pick the next song? And my natural inclination is sort of like, well, what do you want to listen to? Because it's like you're saying it's this connecting thing, and I'm offering something of myself to the group.
that's right.
And I'm
Yeah.
looking, are they going to accept that? Are they not going to accept that? And who knew, Apple was going to influence relationships that intensely through the aux cable.
Well, it's been good because everyone gets exposed to all the different styles, and so that's good.
Mhm.
I think. I
And how
Mm,
remember having a close relationship with someone who was definitely not a musician and definitely not a generalist, but he loved country music. And that's it. That's all he listened to. That was the extent of his musical understanding, but that's fine. And I like
mhm.
country music, so that worked. That was okay.
Mhm. And how does this help individuals who may be struggling with relationships or struggling to feel seen? what are some of the ways in which this can be a useful tool to help facilitate deeper connection?
If you share the same style, it will happen naturally. And it can be difficult if people don't share the same style of music and people are particular about their music. It'll work if you can find a style that you both like.
Mhm.
I personally don't have too much trouble with, just because I've studied so many styles and I like so many styles, but many people aren't like me, and they won't listen to Beyonce, or they have to listen to Beyonce, you know. If you can find common ground, then you're great. And if you can't find common ground, then you can just use it for yourself.
Mm. How would you, when you're working with people who are trying to improve their intimate relationships with significant others, I'm curious how, because you're describing, it's vibrations, it's connectivity, it's back and forth, and you think of music, I want to dance. I'm intrigued by this picture of music and relationship, and that those closer relationships. When you're working with somebody in that, can you talk to us a little bit about how you apply that musical kind of imagery into their lives?
hmm Well, one of the things that I teach people to do is to create a certain feeling tone, a certain vibration of harmony between two people. And that really takes some effort, and it really takes a daily practice, because often people come to me with a problem.
Mm.
Um, they've had an argument, or there's an ongoing situation that they want to transform into something else. And a
Mhm.
lot of times it's kind of like with they've come to me with a tree, basically, that's in soil that's completely dry. And they're saying, make my tree nicer. But what they don't understand is that they've got to water the tree and fertilize the ground a little bit. It doesn't happen instantaneously. So one of the things I start teaching people how to do is to think in terms of vibration and being harmonious with this other person, finding ways to do that, because that starts to sort of water their tree and nurture their tree so that it has a chance to be healthy again. That's the
Mm.
main way that I introduce the idea of vibration. When you
Mm.
can maintain a feeling tone of harmony between two people, then no matter what happens, that's your base. That's where you're starting from, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yes. Can you maybe think of an example or of a time you were working with a client, um, and maybe help explain to some of our viewers where they started, how you were able to use this as a tool, and ultimately how that helped transform them to some later stage in life?
I was working with someone, and I'll leave out some details, some identifying
Please do.
details.
Yes.
Please do.
I was working with a person who was having difficulty with a work colleague, and they, in a nutshell, these were two very sort of dominant people. But one of the people was their superior. So there was a power dynamic, but personality wise, they were both very strong people. And the other person had power over their job in indirect ways. And so this person came to me because they were worried about losing their job. And they had to get along with this person. And this person was leveraging all that power to try to control them. This is not an uncommon situation at work. And so what she wanted was to, it was interesting. She wasn't trying to 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 save her job. That was a small detail. What she really wanted was to be appreciated and to be seen by the other person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, the most important thing in a situation like that is to understand that the reason that it's not happening is because you haven't made a connection, because they're literally fighting each other. And so the first thing that I needed to help her understand was that you needed to figure out how to connect with this other person. So we spent a few sessions just trying to understand what makes the other person tick, and what's a good vibe for them. And once we figured that out, then I was able to show her ways to sort of get on that wavelength. And it's not instantaneous. It's every moment, every day, every time you interact with this person, sort of connecting on that certain way that they connect well, doing it every day, getting into that vibration every day. After a few days, after a few weeks, then they start to feel a connection. And when you have a connection, when the other person feels that you get them and you're connecting with them, then they start to trust you a little bit, because we trust people who are on our wavelength. That was what was needed in order to get started. It didn't completely solve the problem, but it gave them finally a base to start from. So they weren't always starting from no vibration, from no connection. They were starting from a base of a feeling tone of harmony that they could build on. So what happened in the end was really great. It turned out that this person who had come to me, she found another opportunity there at the company and decided to move, to get away from this person. And on her way out, the other person, in front of all of their colleagues, said something to the effect of, it's been great having you here. You're a great worker, and I'm sorry to see you go. And it brought her to tears to just finally be seen. And it was because the other person had finally felt a connection with her. So that's the magic of what connection can do. It really builds trust in the other person and makes them feel comfortable opening up and not resisting you anymore.
Yeah, it sounds like that ability to hop on to the frequency created enough space for them to no longer be in what might have been their own defensive position, but to actually show up a little more vulnerably and actually connect and change the story of what their relationship looked like, all through just a simple practice of choosing to show up in the little moments of saying yes to somebody who's extending themselves outward. Yeah, that's
I think
absolutely
it's
incredible.
also beautiful that it relates to what we started talking about, kind of those needs to be seen, those needs to be connected, and those need to be inspired, and how universal those are, and how there's so many different ways to get there. And I think it's beautiful that you're able to help show our audience how things as simple as music and tuning into our vibrations can really help get to some of these deeper level issues as well.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how you coach your clients through kind of adjusting their own vibration? Like this, again, this is a world I'm not overly familiar with, kind of understanding my vibrations. I'm just sort of like doing my best out here. And if someone's coming to you and they have, let's imagine it's me. How can, what are practices for me to correct or adjust vibrations to at least be more aware of them? Or maybe that's not even a good question, so you tell me, fix the question, give me an answer, whatever it is.
Okay, well, one thing I teach is a practice called core values action that I've actually developed and I use every day of my life. And I'll tell you a little bit about where I got it from. There's a man, his name is Jeffrey Moses, and the universe works in mysterious ways. His name is Moses, and that'll become more ironic as I continue. Um, he did a 20-year study on all of the sacred texts from religions all over the world, the
Wow.
big religions and even little religions, indigenous religions and paganism and all kinds of different spiritual belief systems. And he put together a list of 65 values that appear in every single one of those belief systems. And his takeaway is that we're all seeking the same thing. We're all looking to the same thing. And so what I have done, because of out of necessity, I've told you a little bit about how my family was. I really, several years ago, needed a way to relate to them better, because they were treating me in a way probably that they had been treated. And I wanted to have a different kind of relationship with them. So I developed this way of interacting with them that was based on these values, some of these values that this man had found in his research. I chose a group of them that made sense to me, and I practiced them kind of in a cycle as a daily practice. For instance, today, I remind myself to be peaceful, to take peaceful action and find a new beginning. That's my value for today, peacemaking. And I practice them every day around in a cycle, and I've been doing this for years. So every day I take an action that is in line with that value, which is has a kind of a spiritual vibe, even not religious, but spiritual vibe. And the other person feels a certain connection because this is a value that they're likely to understand too, because spiritual practices all over the planet understand this value. So all of the values that I use in core values action are from this group of values that every spiritual belief system on the planet follows. And that way, when I'm using them and interacting with people using these values, I know that they understand it and it forms a connection. So when I do this week after month after year, this builds a wonderful feeling tone with other people and a level of trust. So this is what I teach people how to do. It's not as sexy as, okay, if you just say this, then they'll stop doing that. It's not like that. You have to do the work to build the relationship. But it's magical. I can vouch for it from my own personal experience living with people and interacting at family gatherings with people who have been taught to not communicate. And it works extremely well at creating connection.
Well, it's interesting because you're describing this pursuit, so like you said, today is an example that your goal is to be peaceful, and that's the value you want to live into. I'd be intrigued to hear, I can only guess and assume as much. You have days where you're supposed to be peaceful that are not all that peaceful. And be intrigued to hear, like, how in those moments, how does that work? As you have your feelings erupting, or you have emotions are kicking up, and you've leaned into this specific value. Can you talk about what it's like to help redirect or change directions, I guess? Yeah.
What a wonderful question. One thing I've learned over the years is that feelings and actions are kind of a two-way street. When you have a feeling, it makes you take action. But what's really cool is it works the other way too. When you take an action, it helps you have that feeling. So if you're feeling really lonely, if you go and hug someone, you suddenly don't feel lonely anymore. The action actually changes your feeling. And so my practice is around taking action. So if it's a day when I'm not feeling peaceful, my directive for that day is to take peaceful action and find a new beginning. So if I'm not feeling peaceful, my job is to find a peaceful action to take towards someone in an effort to make that feeling emerge, if that makes sense.
I think it does. And I think it's something that is so powerful. In psychology, there's this idea of behavioral activation. And that's oftentimes when individuals are depressed, to do an activity that brings them joy. And the act of doing that behavior, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's not what you're feeling right now, the act of doing that behavior changes the mindset. And so I'm hearing it be very similar as well. We are almost out of time, and this has just been such a wonderful conversation. We have time for just a little bit more. What are some of the take-home messages you would like our viewers to get?
Relationships take work, but it's so rewarding. And when you build trust, it breeds openness. You'll never regret it.
That's good. That's a really good word. Jana, thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, just absolutely incredible. I know we've learned a lot. I'm excited to hear the feedback from our viewers. I think it's just been a gift to have you here. We'll hopefully can bring you back on at some point in the near future. And thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much for being a part of this.
Sure. I really appreciate you having me on. It's been great talking to you. Thank you for your questions. They really helped me even connect deeper to what I'm trying to do to help people. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Our pleasure.
All right. All right, that is all that we have for this week. We are so grateful that you took time to listen to our podcast, and we hope that you were able to take away something meaningful from the conversation with Jana Cole. If you have any interest in getting to know more about her work, please check the show notes. There you're going to find ways to connect with Jana and any of the other hosts that you might want to connect with. All right, take some of the lessons learned this week and go forward and make the world a better place. And we will see you next week.